It's really more.
Jen?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Welcome everybody to the September 19th, 2022 Finance Committee meeting. If you could please make your cell phones either on vibrate or mute. Happy birthday to Byron and City Clerk Jones today. This is, I'm sure, just how you wanted to spend your birthdays. We do have everyone present here from the Finance Committee except for Mr. Johnson, who is attending via Zoom. Those wishing to make comment under the public comment section, please, if you would still approach the table so we can get your comments recorded, we would certainly appreciate that, and identify yourself when you do that. With that, I'll ask Jen to read the first item on the agenda, please.
Number 20, resolution reappropriating the fiscal year 2023 budget of the City of Cheyenne according to the provisions of Wyoming State Statutes 16-4-112 and 16-4-113.
Staff report, please.
Hi, Robin Lockman, City Treasurer. Before you is the first and largest reappropriation of the fiscal year 2023 budget. I've already provided to you a detailed memo, but I'll quickly highlight some of the requests. First, every year in September, I reappropriate carryover amounts from various funds, including the 5th penny, 6th penny, and others, such as unspent grants from the prior year. In addition, all encumbrances, which are simply purchase orders as of June 30th, where goods and services were ordered but not received, are also included in provided. Next are 2 general fund accounts, including the billboard planning line item and the Parks and Recreation project. They have unspent balances as of June 30th and are proposed to be rolled over. Those accounts have been rolled over for several years. I did ask Jason Sanchez to spend the funds for the Parks and Rec projects line item this year, so we don't have to. So we have available. In addition to the encumbrances and rollovers, there are 3 general fund reserve requests. The first is the accrual payout for the current Youth Alternatives clinical supervisor who will be retiring. Jay Sullivan would like to replace her 3 months early and allow for some cross-training opportunities. He is supposed to be on. He's supposed to be here for the.
He's on.
Sounds like he is.
I'm on, Robin.
Jay. The second is for $70,000 to develop an ADA transition plan. Tom Cobb is present to answer. I think he's present to answer these questions. And then finally, Jason Sanchez is requesting $314,611 from general fund reserves to cover the hiring of a box office manager position for a total cost of $74,767, which will cover salary and benefits, as well as to cover an anticipated Civic Center cash deficit. Currently, the Civic Center has $239,990 in cash right now, but that does not include what we owe for the sound system that was ordered, which was $457,722. This will cause a cash deficit of $270,000. Jason did ask for a higher general fund subsidy in his fiscal year 23 budget request, but that was not funded. And the mayor and I took this down to look at the end of the year to see where they end up as far as if they have a deficit at that time. He is present. If you have questions on that request as well. For questions.
Thanks, Robin. Stand by. Comments from the public?
I don't see any hands raised.
Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would so move.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
We do have a sub, don't forget.
I have a sub. Do I have a motion on the substitute?
I would move to, you want us to amend, to adopt the substitute resolution amended by substitute dated September 13th, 2022.
But it's been moved and seconded on the substitute. Are there comments on the substitute from the public?
I don't see anything over here.
Hearing none. Comments from the committee on the substitute. Dr. Aldrich.
I was just curious on the encumbrances that we had to let go because we hadn't received the items prior to when you close the books. Is there, or will those items be reordered or will they just be taken out of the up and coming funding?
The order maintained, we ordered it in fiscal year 22, it just stays until we receive it.
Okay.
Other comments from the committee on the substitute?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so I've been trying to go through my emails to find the reason for the substitute, and I don't want to misquote from whichever email it came through. Can someone remind us of the reason for the substitute?
Mr. Chairman, the substitute is a result of the Board of Public Utilities changing, they had to increase their request for their reappropriation.
Okay, so was there, because I thought on our recommended language, was there something from the fire chief on number 20, or was that misinformation?
Chairman,
Go ahead,
the
Jen.
fire chief memo has to do with number 29G, I believe, 29G. So there was just, I added that memo in this morning so that I just want to be sure you guys saw it. So it refers to 29G, nothing to do with this one.
Okay, yeah, I just was reading it where it says sub for 20 in the memo. Okay, so just the sub for 20 had nothing to do with fire chief. It was two different items, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments from the committee on the substitute? Hearing none. All those in favor of the substitute, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, the substitute passes. Therefore, we're back on the main motion as amended. Any further comments from the committee on the main motion as amended? Hearing none. All those in favor of the main motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Thank you, Robin. Next item, please.
Number 22, resolution expressing the will of the governing body directing the mayor to hire a special projects manager to assist the city of Cheyenne in managing and coordinating certain six-penny tax projects and other city project priorities.
Staff report, we're pleased to welcome our colleague, Mr. Seeger. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
This has gone through a number of different iterations, and I think you've got a couple in front of you. I believe there's a substitute that's ready to be proposed. Anyway, with $65 million in funds approved by the city for six-penny projects, with the 15th Street experience, the Belvoir Ranch, the Reed Avenue, potentially gymnastics facilities, courts facilities. There's a lot of special projects that I believe we need a coordinator for. Right now, some of our projects are being coordinated by a nonprofit. Which I'm very appreciative of because we have no one else to do it. As I tried to put this together, I modeled it after the position that was previously held by Bob Bradshaw, probably 15 plus years ago. I originally proposed including the Clean and Safe, which was later withdrawn out of my proposal. So really I'm down to the point of just expressing the desire for this position, encouraging the mayor to hire this person. I worked with the finance director on how to pay for this. Originally, it was going to come out of six-penny funds, but then this person would not be allowed to do any non-six-penny funds. So the answer was to pay it out of the general fund, and then any 6 penny projects would bill back on an hourly basis. Hopefully those 6 penny funds will come out of any overage during this time frame. But the language is a proposal, but I'm certainly open to changes. But I really believe if we don't do these 6 penny projects properly, there's issues. I think we're in trouble as we try to renew it down the road. So as you know, our staff is pretty well maxed out. All of a sudden we hand them an extra $65 million in projects and expect them to do it and do it well. And I think we need somebody to coordinate this. So that's the genesis. The substitute is my final proposal, subject to your input.
Thank you, Mr. Seagrave. Stand by, please.
Yes, I will.
Comments from the public on this item?
I don't see any hands raised.
Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to adopt.
Second.
It's
been moved and seconded.
I would move to amend by substitute dated September 6, 2022.
It's been moved and seconded to amend by substitute. Any questions or comments from the committee on the substitute? Dr. Aldrich.
I think, Chairman White, in looking at this, and I may be wrong, I've been trying to compare the two copies. I think that basically what's changed is the breakdown of how we were going to pay for this position under the CDEEFG on page 3. So it looks like now it's just all but put as to whereas the city treasurer shall in regular intervals reimburse the general fund using the information. I think that's the only change I see.
Mr.
Chair, yes, Mr. Chair, Chris Jones, City Clerk. We received an original draft a few weeks ago. That is the one has the August date. Unfortunately, staff inadvertently published the wrong version, the draft, rather than the September 6th date. So that's the reason for the substitute.
Thank you, Chris. Other comments or questions from the committee on the substitute?
When you're ready.
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, so I was one that caught it this morning in regards to that and looking at the revisal. The thing that red flagged for me was the numbers on the original document. And so I don't have a background on this, just looking at the whereas where it had breakdowns, that the one that was posted on the website said 39 6/10% shall be levied against proposition number 5. And so when I calculated that project was like $14 million, and it looked like the project manager stood to gain about $2 million from just that one proposition. And it kept adding up as I went through the propositions. And then in the substitute, I didn't show it, just besides the fact that it was general fund monies, of exactly what we were estimating to pay. Because this makes me real nervous if it was on the original draft that was posted that it was nearly $4 million that was going to a project manager to a substitute that really doesn't have a monetary value. So can somebody give me a background of why it looked like we were going to pay $4 million to a project manager on the original draft compared to no mention of a salary on the substitute?
Any clarification?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Seagrave.
We were never intending to pay $4 million. It was going to be 39% of their annual salary, whatever that number is. I don't know what a project manager costs in today's world. That's why I didn't include his salary. But the percentages that were later removed was trying to break it down by project and 6 penny. But when we determined that we wanted to be able to include non-6 penny projects, all of that went out the window.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, kind of. When I read it, it looked like it was 39.6%. shall be levied against the Proposition 5, where it kind of was misleading because it said 75% of the necessary salaries, taxes, benefits, and other associated costs for a special project manager's position being funded by the 6 penny monies. And so if I was looking at per project, just the wording on the original draft was a little misleading, that it didn't look like all these amounts would, the 39.68771 would equal up to 75%. I didn't add it that way. I started going by monetary values, not up to percentage values of 75%. So I'd still like some clarification on this in regards to the substitute. So I'll vote no on this. I don't want it to end up on consent.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Treasurer Lockman, do you have some further insight for us?
From Lockman City Treasurer, Mr. Chairman. And I'm not sure, like he said, we don't know what project manager, but if somebody was making $75,000 a year, it'd be about $119,000 for what's benefits. That helps.
That does provide some clarification. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the committee on this item?
On the amendment
or on the amendment? Excuse me. We are still on the amendment. Hearing none. All those in favor of this amendment, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay, the amendment has passed. We are back on the main motion as amended. Any further comments or questions on the main motion as amended? It looks like Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, I guess one of my concerns is that there is no end date with this position. And I understand that obviously it would be when the projects are finished that are outlined here, A through F on the resolution. But I would like to see us put an end date on this, that once these projects are completed, that the position be terminated. Taking on a special projects manager indefinitely, and I think quite honestly, knowing what special project managers are going for right now, we've got fresh right out of UW 4-year project management, construction management students who are being offered $120,000 a year right out of UW with no experience. I think we're going to be fortunate to get somebody for under $150,000 to $175,000 by the time you add in benefits. So I would like to see some sort of a termination date put on this, so that we don't end up with a position that we're going to end up being responsible to and carrying forward for many years to come.
Very well, Dr. Aldridge, are you going to add a termination date today, or do you want to wait until the meeting of the full governing body?
Let's wait until the meeting of the full governing body, and then we can add that. So that gives the city attorney time to work on adding a whereas clause. Oh, you have one?
Mr. Chair, Judge City Clerk, if you need the last be it therefore resolved clause, it talks about the position being appointed by the mayor. Those positions are for a 2-year term. So if it stays, the language stays as to be appointed by the mayor, the position would be like the city treasurer, fire chief, that would be appointed for a 2-year term, which could be continued if the projects are still going, if that's the desire, just for clarification.
Well, I'd like to see us actually delineate what that looks like, so that there's no question as to whether this, especially as we're hiring somebody, I don't want to hire somebody with them thinking they're going to be here for 30 years, when the reality is, as soon as these projects are done, I would have no intention of voting to continue their employment.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to provide clarification of the language, current language in the president.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Any other comments or questions on the main motion as amended?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Escobar.
Get a director up here. Let's pick on Jason, for example.
He seems very excited by it.
Well, you know, there are a lot of us kind of fall in there. So
welcome, Jason. Good morning. How are you?
Give me an idea of how you would work with a special projects manager, for example. Let's take the Johnsonville project.
Well, obviously, we'll share 3 days of science community recommends. For that project, it is for design and for a little research to find out what it would cost to build a new pool in the location. So that person, if there's a project manager, may take the lead point in working with TJ to create an RFP and the scope of work. So we could do a request for proposals. And then maybe work with our department to, with that consulting firm. We would have to provide information on historical information, number of people that use the pool, blah, 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 all those things. And so then that person would end up more than likely submitting that report and presenting to the governing body. Would be for that type of project. Maybe for a gymnastic facility or a building, they would be able to work with, again, to create a scope of work to get the dirt work done, the earth work, plumbing and sewer, and then bidding out the materials for a building, and then bidding out the labor for those type of, to erect the building. Those would be some examples I could give.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Any other questions, Mr. Escabel?
Not right now.
I think that blah, blah, blah was a different term.
They'll be in the index.
Right.
Thank you, Jason. Other comment, if there are no other comments or questions on the main motion as amended, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
That item moves forward as amended and will be heard. Thank you, Mr. Seagrave. Appreciate your comments. Next item, Jen.
Number 23, resolution expressing the will of the governing body to prioritize and adequately fund specified downtown Sixpenny tax maintenance and improvement projects.
Staff report. Is there a staff report?
I'll give it a shot.
Go ahead, Jason. We appreciate that. We can try and help you if necessary.
Try to keep the blah, blah, blah stuff.
Jason.
Mr. Chair, at the request for the governing body, our department submitted a list of projects that we feel we could accomplish in 6-month increments. We submitted that to the governing body for review about a month ago. I think the total is just shy of $1 million for the maintenance side of the projects for that consideration of that Sixpenny funding. If you have any questions about the projects that we listed or if the dates that we had identified, I'd be willing to take any questions, but I believe that's the premise of the resolution.
Thanks, Jason. Anything to add, Robin?
Robin Lockton, City Treasurer. And I also noticed that the fence wasn't, the decorative fence wasn't included, and so I'd asked John to include that as well in addition to Jason's, because that was directed by the mayor to get started.
Great. Stand by. Comments from the public?
I don't see anything.
Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, I'm looking, I don't see the fence on here. Am I missing it somewhere, Robin? Oh, existing security fencing, okay. At Project B. I was just curious, do you think that our collections is this realistic for the collections as we're seeing them right now?
Mr. Chairman, through you.
Go ahead, that's a good question.
Yeah, so I figured, so we've received 4 payments so far. So we have $493,000 in the bank right now. We're getting about $123,000 per month. So I multiplied that by 24 months, which this resolution covers, and it's $2,962,000. So we have about 1.5 million still to work with. If the Cheyenne people has.
That's good information, Robin. Thank you. Other comments or questions from the committee?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so on this resolution, it says 1,416,922. So I didn't have a time to look at this morning. After that amount is deducted, what is the residual amount left over after this has been allocated on the proposition that was approved?
Mr. Sanchez just indicated about 4.5 million.
That was the amount of the approved by the voters, so that's the amount left over after this 1.4 whatever million.
Mr. Chair, I believe 6 million is what was approved by the voters with a deduction of 1.4.
Yeah. I think your figures are correct. Yeah, 6 million was approved by the voters, Mr. Johnson. So you subtract 1.4 and some change, you're talking about 4.5 million left over.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 28H, professional services agreement between the City of Cheyenne, Cheyenne Fire and Rescue Department, and Time Clock Plus TCP of San Angelo, Texas for scheduling software.
That's for you.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Andrew Dykstorm, Division Chief Operations for Cheyenne Fire Rescue. Before you is a consideration for professional service agreement to enter into a multi-year contract with Time Clock Plus LLC for our current scheduling software. The current pricing quote is found in Exhibit A for the next 3 years, which shows a 12% uplift or increase each year. We began using this product as some background back in January of this year, and it has created a great amount of efficiency within our fire department for scheduling our personnel. There's considerably less time spent on manually entering payroll information and daily adjustment of scheduling for personnel as well. The system has some other unique abilities, such as sending out messaging, so it's a great communication device. We can find coverage for open shifts that exist. We can create and use forms, and as a communication tool and schedule public events for our fire department. The ability to enter into this multi-year contract will lock in the pricing over the next 3 years. This equates to about a $4,000 potential savings, and doing some research with the company. They're projecting that it would be up to a 17% increase by year 3 for us. So if there aren't any other questions, I will send any questions.
Thank you, sir. Stand by, please. Comments from the public. Do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $31,868.
It's been moved in second. Comments from the committee.
I had a question. Chairman White.
Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you, Chief Dykstorm, can you just tell me, do you happen to know, I mean, and I don't know if you guys are tracking this, about how much you've saved in hourly wages, just computing schedules and schedule changes and things?
Yes, through your chair. So we started kind of tracking how much time that took every morning for the time sheets. It was about 30 to 45 minutes in the morning, basically, in the morning time, and then scheduling at night. Our schedules are built up to 2 years out now. So it's saved a lot of that manual time. I don't have a specific number about how much they saved, but it's almost 2 hours a day. Wages and costs for our personnel to move that stuff around. It's also created some efficiencies where we were losing sight because the system tracks and employees can do it from their phone, from their tablets. So they can request leave, they can know if it's available or not. So it saves some efficiency there. In looking at our current overtime numbers as well, the system allows us to fill overtime ahead of time, which has allowed our young personnel that have families to better schedule their daycare and such. So as we sit right now to project overtime for the next 4 months, we're about $100,000 less than we were last year.
So it's paid for itself, I guess, is what I'm looking for.
It has, and hopefully, if we can continue to use it through your consideration today, we'll have better analysis moving forward in the future.
So thank you.
So just for clarification, that's really good information, but you indicated that your estimation, you're saving about 2 hours a day in just what this efficiency and the technology offers.
Yes, sir.
So 730 hours a year. That's pretty darn significant.
Anywhere from, yeah, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
$40 to $50 an hour.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions from the committee on this item?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Okay, so Andrew, I don't know if it cut out. Did you say that this was completely compatible with all the city's payroll systems for if this was just for scheduling, or had you worked with the treasurer to make sure that everything was compatible between the operating systems?
Yes, sir, through you, Chair. This does have a payroll component to it. We are currently working on the setup so that there is an export of a CSV out of this program into the Paycom system through an import. This will then save our office manager countless hours as well of manually entering things into Paycom.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 There's no one opposed, that item moves forward. Thanks, Andrew.
Number 28I, contract between the City of Cheyenne, Cheyenne Police Department, and the Wyoming Department of Transportation for impaired driving, high visibility overtime enforcement.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chairman White, members of the committee. I'm Joel Hickerson, lieutenant with the Cheyenne Wyoming Police Department. This particular grant is $48,114.25 for impaired driving, high visibility overtime. It's a traffic enforcement grant, which pays officers their overtime wage to conduct traffic stops and make arrests for driving under the influence in its various forms. It's an annual agreement, and it comes through on the federal fiscal renourishment timeframe of October 1st every year.
Thank you. Stand by. Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount of $48,114.25.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldrich.
Chairman White, through you, thank you guys for seeking out grants to help with that type of enforcement and to help pay overtime. It just makes it more doable for the city and keeps our community safer. So I appreciate your efforts, because grant writing is not always an easy task.
If there are no other questions from the committee, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 If no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 28J, contract between the City of Cheyenne, Cheyenne Police Department, and the Wyoming Department of Transportation for occupant protection, high visibility overtime enforcement.
Staff report.
Chairman White, through you, members of the committee, once again, Lieutenant Hickerson with Cheyenne PD. This is a separate grant, also provided to the same funding sources, however, in the amount of $36,530.59. This allows us to occupant protection. As you guys may know, the state of Wyoming, a seatbelt violation is not a primary stop violation. However, if we do conduct traffic stops and find that to be an issue, particularly with child restraint issues, we definitely want to, one, educate, to advocate for proper use and train for proper use, and three, when possible or when needed, to enforce those laws. Our primary means of also maintaining that occupant protection safety is to enforce laws such as our stop sign violations, stop light violations, speeding, things that create collisions. And we're hoping to reduce those issues here in Cheyenne by use of this grant to those same overtime funding measures.
Thanks. Lieutenant Hickerson, stand by. Comments from the public.
Don't see any.
Do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve an amount of $36,530.59.
Okay. It's been moved in second. And comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 No one's opposed. That item moves forward.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lieutenant Hickerson. Next item, please.
Number 28K, contract between the City of Cheyenne and the Cheyenne Housing Authority to provide supportive senior services.
Staff report.
Vicki Nemechek, Public Works. This is a $50,000 general fund budget item that was approved in the FY 2023 annual budget. We the description of what they do is provide services described in the Older Americans Act of 1965, and Appendix A lists all of those groups that we provide. We recommend approval and would be happy for each.
Thanks, Vicki. Stand by. Comments from the public. Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Vicki, can you send us on Appendix A, can you send us a breakdown of the $50,000? How much is going to be used in 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Appendix A before next meeting?
I would, do we have a representative from? From China. We did ask a representative to come. I don't know how they split that up. I can certainly send them something and ask. We did ask them to be present at the meeting, but apparently they were not able to make it. But I can ask.
A breakdown would be helpful on that. If you could just get that emailed out to folks before the next meeting. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
That item moves forward with Mr. Johnson as a no. Next item, please.
Number 28L, contract between the City of Cheyenne and Volunteers of American Northern Rockies Alcohol Receiving Center to provide alcohol and drug detoxification services.
Dr. Ford.
Vicki Nemechek, Public Works. Again, this is $136,875 that was approved in the FY23 annual budget. The representative from Volunteers of American Northern Rockies Alcohol Receiving Center, in case you have any questions. And we do recommend approval.
Thanks, Vicki. Dan, did you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Heidi McNeil. I'm the director of the ARC, as well as the facility there. Just the drug and alcohol facility right now, we recommend approval just simply because we're partnering with the communities and our community partners, I guess, and as well as those community members that are trying to live the life of recovery. So here we're providing those detoxification services, but as well as those, we have worked forward to expand those services in helping them get those assessments and things like that and apply for additional services and hopefully get into those residential treatments facilities. So we've kind of expanded our services a little bit as we've merged with VOA. So
thank you, Heidi, and thank you to you and your staff for all the important work that you do for us in the community. Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $136,875.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldrich.
Through you, Chairman White, I just have a question. Can you tell us how many individuals you served last year from Laramie County or from Cheyenne in accordance with this amount?
Off the top of my head, individually. So the way that we have calculated it is per episode. So an episode means that one individual can stay there anywhere from 5 to 7 days. So sometimes we have those individuals that come in there and they need that time to detox. So in serving those, I could say that we have served, I think it is somewhere around those individuals. I think it was somewhere around 1,275, but some of those individuals have stayed in weeks length. So we don't separate those individuals by days, but more so time served.
That's a total. Other comments or questions from the committee?
When you're ready.
Okay, we'll go to Mr. Escobar first and then Mr. Johnson. Go ahead, Mr. Escobar.
I just got a follow-up, but so if you have a patient that comes in more than once, so they're in for a week and then see them for a couple of months, they come in again, then
they're new. That client is counted as a new serve.
Okay.
This is a duplicated number.
I think, hang on 1 second, Dr. Albert. Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Okay, so mine is on section 3 fees. City agrees to pay contractor a total amount not to exceed $136,875 for services set forth in Appendix A. So on Appendix A, it brings up, let me scroll down there, sorry. It says For the mission, it says that it basically is affordable, effective mental health and substance abuse for residents of Albany, Goshen, Laramie, and Platte counties in Wyoming. And then to provide the social services. So is this just the city's allocation for our services according to Appendix A? Or do you guys have contracts set up with Albany, Goshen, Laramie, and Platte counties as well? And do the municipalities of those counties also have contributions into your organization? I didn't really see a breakdown on how our 136 calculated with all the other entities in those 4 counties.
To my best knowledge, it is only Laramie County that provides us any other contribution, because those other counties that we do serve, it's a hit or miss, very rare, but we have had other people that have been driven from those by law enforcement, but very rare do they come. But we do provide services because we don't shut our doors to anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. Heidi, would you be able to provide us with some type of breakdown? I mean, when you serve these individuals, I'm assuming you would be able to document kind of where these individuals from.
We have reported to the state.
Right. So that information might be helpful to us. Get that out. Appreciate it. Thank you. Dr. Aldrich.
I turn more through. So the 1,275 number that you gave us is a duplicated number. I mean, a person could appear in that number more than once. My other question, turn right through you, is it also possible for you to I guess I'm curious as to you're going to be able to give us a cost of what it costs for an individual basically per day to provide these services. I'm guessing that we don't receive a lot of residents from Albany, Goshen, and Platte because the facility is located here. But I'm wondering, can you tell us or provide for us, and you may not have it off the top of your head, what are the amount, or if those other counties other than Laramie County don't contribute anything at this point, the counties don't. But do you know what Laramie County's share is?
30,000.
So Laramie County's paying 40,000 and we're paying 136,000.
Yes, and we had a discussion to raise their amount, but Mayor Collins did have a discussion with them about our contribution from the city as well as the county and their distribution of that.
So can I ask a follow-up question? So after that conversation the mayor had with them was, are they going to contribute more?
No.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other comments from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
That item moves forward with Mr. Johnson as a no. Thank you, Heidi. Next item, please.
Number 28M, contract between the City of Cheyenne and Safe Harbor to provide a safe and a secure environment to families who have been affected by abuse.
Staff report.
Vicky Nemechek, Public Works. This is an approved budget line item of $17,500 approved in the FY 2023 general fund budget. The director is here, obviously, and we recommend approval. If you'd like to.
Sure. Could you please identify yourself for the record, and if you have anything to add, please do so.
Chairman White and committee, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Lynn Story-Heiler, and I'm the director of Safe Harbor. I'm going to give you a little information about what we use that money for. This is based on 2021 work because we're in the process of doing 2022 work right now. So in 2021, we conducted 44 forensic interviews for the Cheyenne Police Department alone. Forensic interviews are billed out at about $350 per interview, and they are for the life of the case. And what I mean by that is a case can come in and we can do an interview one day, and then it can take years for it to go through prosecution, if not even many, many years. So that $350 follows that whole case. It follows me with any more follow-up or any court testimony or anything that I need to do. So in 2021, there were 44 interviews that we conducted for the Cheyenne Police Department. We also facilitated 18 investigative child protection team meetings where we cross-coordinated all the cases in Laramie County to make sure that no kid fell through the cracks. We provide, out of those 44, we provided 12 same-day interviews for the Cheyenne Police Department. This means that they called the same day and they wanted an interview that same day, and we were able to accommodate that time. We conducted 5 off-site forensic interviews for Cheyenne PD under those 44, where we went to the schools and I took recording equipment to the schools to be able to do those interviews for them. We provided 1 on-site forensic interview for CPD, where we went to the safety center and provided that interview. Safe Harbor also paid for 2 detectives to attend the 37 International Symposium on Child Abuse and Neglect in Huntsville, Alabama. It was a virtual conference, and so we paid $499 times 2 detectives for them to attend a virtual conference. We also paid for a virtual conference for 2 detectives, Dallas Crimes Against Children conference. That was also virtual, and they attended that at $400 per person. Safe Harbor conducted 1 peer review supervision session with the other forensic interviewers. CPD has a couple of interviewers as well. And we conducted peer review with supervision, which is important in the field. We provided case consultation and research for a CPD detective on an issue relating to something that she needed. And so we did research and we consulted on that case. And then in 2021, we had a homicide that involved juveniles, and Safe Harbor completed numerous interviews of juveniles that were witness to that homicide. So those are just a few of the highlights. Under the 17.5 that we get, that amount of money actually purchases about 50 interviews for the city. So COVID, we did see a little bit of a decrease in some of our numbers, but then we made up with all the other services that we provided. So we expend all of the 17.5. We use it to every penny down to the last penny. So, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, ma'am. And again, thank you to you and your staff for all the work.
Thank you.
The really important work that you do in our community. Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $17,500.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldridge.
Chairman White, through you. I quite honestly, I just wish that we got as many benefits from our investments as what we get from the $17,500. So I really appreciate what I see as a really vital role that you play in our community and that Safe Harbor does in making sure that our police department and can get the assistance and the training they need, and they have a partner to help them out, as well as the protection you provide for our children. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would.
Mr. Escobar.
Also echo those sentiments of my colleague from Ward 3. The only thing that does cause me some concern is we could get some more information. It's probably ED information where they're called out on a domestic disturbance and the charges are eventually not filed. I know that happens quite often. There's a lot more going on in the community than what we get reports on.
I could comment to that.
Please go ahead.
I've just been asked to be on the task force by the U.S. Attorney's Office on a project called Project Safe Neighborhood. And they look at just those kinds of things. We look at neighborhoods, and we look at communities, and we look at violent crimes. And I'm being a resource expert on children. And so that is one piece we're going to start looking at. And Cheyenne is one of our largest state communities, and they really want to target Cheyenne. So I appreciate your thoughts on that. And I do a lot of interviews with kids who witnessed domestic violence, and it's horrific. The trauma that they experience, the memories that they will live with the rest of their life is pretty horrific. So
that sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, man. There are no other questions from the committee.
Actually, I did. I was waiting.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Okay. So Lynn, looking at Appendix A, it looks like it's just for abused and neglected children in the city of Cheyenne. Does that mean city limits that you hear cases from the SOs, and from what I got from your references, it's only CPD? Do you do LSO interviews or no?
I do, and they actually pay for those interviews as well. So their pot, they give me a pot of money that pays for their own interviews. The money that you give me specifically are for CPD interviews only.
Okay, and so I guess their caseload would be a lot less than CPD's, is that correct?
Correct. I receive about 12,000 from them a year.
Okay. I guess procedurally, and I've stated this many times before, I would prefer more oversight on this. I've always been upset that this is an independent line item in the overall budget, and I would always prefer this to be put under the police budget so it had more oversight, and that's my only comment.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. There are no other comments or questions on this item. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, Mr. Johnson is an aye. As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Thank you, ma'am. Next item, please.
Number 28N, access license agreement between the City of Cheyenne and Retail Property C LLC for ingress and egress access purposes.
Staff report. Welcome, Chief Copper, Attorney Boston.
Our chief, the item you have before you today is for an access agreement property at the Ashley Park site number 3 for Teacher Fire Station. There is some additional work that needs to be addressed within the agreement. So we're actually requesting a postponement right now for Mr. Work, and such we need to work through that. We'll stand for it.
Thanks, Chief. Attorney Foster, do you have any insight you want to offer as well?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Worth, I think intention here is to guarantee access to the furniture site. And we're happy to accommodate him. We're just not agreeing on how to do that. So we'd like to work through that. His attorney, Brian Shook, is out of town the next 8 days. So we're not optimistic that we're going to be able to resolve this issue by next week.
I'll allow questions. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, the same individual that we employ is his attorney?
No,
Mr. Shook?
No, Mr. Shook has his own private practice.
Okay, I thought we contracted with him.
No, we contract with a prosecutor named Brian Quinn.
Okay. It's like
so many times.
Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. Any comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
So we need a main motion and then we need a postponement motion.
Right.
So I would move to approve.
But it's been moved and seconded. Go ahead.
I would move to postpone for 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone this item for a period of 2 weeks. Are there any comments or questions on the move to postpone?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Just for clarification, in your original lease agreement or license agreement, is the amount of $10 correct for what we're doing for the grantor and grantee? Was that amount the right amount?
Mr. Chairman, that's a standard amount that they put in there for access agreements. Charles can clarify. He put it on
Charles Bloom. Mr. Bloom is acknowledging the affirmative for that.
Okay, I guess then looking at like other items that we've had on our agenda, I thought that this one was odd that, you know, when we have all these contract modifications and things like that that are way larger values than $10. And then reading this over, it looked like it would have been more appropriate to send a public service committee for $10. Is there any reason why we have to bring a $10 licensee agreement before the council, or is this something that can be handled administratively?
I think that's a really good question. Is there anyone who can answer that? I think Mr. Bloom's approaching. $10 does seem a little minimal. Mr. Bloom?
Chair, members of the committee, Charles Bloom, Planning Development Director. The 10 and other consideration is standard language under most access easements or license agreements that you see. And that arises from Wyoming being a non-disclosure state. So $10 other consideration, that's standard. Typically, when we're encumbering a city property, we do believe it is best to make sure that it does go to the governing body to review and make a recommendation. The way this license agreement is presented right now, it provides essentially an encumbrance for, I believe it's a 25-year period. And there's been discussions as to whether or not that should be an easement. If this in turn does turn out to be an easement, that will again go through the governing body. It would probably be reviewed by the Public Services Committee, either as a standalone easement or as an addition to a plot. Yes, I believe the reason we brought this here today, Finance Committee, because it does have a financial component, although a small amount. The other one is for transparency, so everyone is aware of what is going on and that we're creating that access for that property.
Dr. Aldridge, did you have a question?
I do, Chairman White, through you. It doesn't indicate that the $10 here is annually or that it's a one-time fee. So when we get this back, can we have that clarified? Because $10 over 25 years would be the $2,500, right? $250. So.
Chair,
Mr. Blow.
The $10 would be a one-time fee for this license agreement.
Okay, but it doesn't say anywhere that it's 1 year, so, or one time. So maybe if we could clarify that, that'd be great.
Other questions?
I'm sorry. The other thing
Dr.
is under number 5, it says it's only 20 years. You said 25.
Here, through you to Dr. Aldrich, it is 20. I wasn't certain on the time frame. I said 20 or 25, and I think Stephanie got it at 25, but we were both incorrect. We weren't sure what we had settled on that.
Well, then we would have been down to 200.
And Mr. Chairman, through you, we've gone through a couple of different versions of this. That's why we need a postponement. We got some work to do.
Great. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to postpone for 2 weeks, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, the item to postpone has been approved. Thank you both. Thank you all three. Next item, please.
Number 29E, amendment number 2 to contract number 5939 between the City of Cheyenne and the Lamar Companies for billboard leases.
Staff report.
Vicki Nemechek, Public Works. This is a lease agreement that we are basically renewing with an amendment to its revenue to the city of $1,850. It's $150 more than it was in previous years. We rent only the space on the billboard. We don't do anything else to maintain the, anytime there's something wrong with the signs, we just give them a call and we have to take care of them. These billboards have existed and were on the branch prior to purchase of the billboard in 2003. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Stand by, Vicki. Thank you. Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount of $1,850 per month for a 5-year term.
It's been moved and seconded.
Sorry, it says, okay, it's per year. Sorry, it's
Per month for a 5-year term.
It says, she says it's per year though.
It's a per year that an annual rent of $1,850.
Okay, just for clarification, so the motion is to approve an amount of $1,850 per year for a 5-year term.
Yes.
Thanks for that clarification. Comments from the committee?
I like the month better.
Me too.
Sorry, we couldn't get that. There are no other, there are no comments from the committee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 29F, contract modification number 1 to contract number 7488 between the City of Cheyenne and MHP LLP to provide financial and compliance auditing services for the City of Cheyenne and the Cheyenne Board of Public Utilities for fiscal year ending June 30th of 2022.
Staff report.
Robin Lockman, City Treasurer. Per the Single Audit Act, government recipients of $750,000 or more per year in federal financial assistance must undergo an organization-wide financial compliance audit. Earlier this year, when MHP provided a cost proposal for the city's annual audit for fiscal year 22, the total amount of federal expenditures from July 1 of 21 to June 30th of 22 was not known. Once I prepared the schedule of expenditures for federal awards and provided it to MHP, they determined that they had a total of 7 federal programs that were required to be audited instead of the 4 that were done the previous fiscal year. In fiscal year 21, the city had 8,273,134 federal expenditures, and 36 federal grant awards, and comparison, fiscal year 22 had 43 awards and a total of 11,718,000. So this is 7 more awards than the previous year. Therefore, MHP is requesting a contract modification in the amount of $10,500, which is $3,500 for each additional federal program. And Stephanie Pickering, she's a partner, MHP, she's on Zoom. She's for her, and I would stand for it.
Thank you, Stephanie, for being here today. Stand by, Robin, stand by, Stephanie. Comments from the public? Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
Chairman, I would move to approve an amount not to exceed 10,500.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldrich.
Robin, you said that there were 7 more federal awards and that each one of them was $3,500. That doesn't come up to 10,500.
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, $3,500 is, they're just charging that much more for the 4 additional.
The 4 additional, okay. Okay.
3 additional.
Well, and actually that's a pretty good price, I think.
For what they do.
Yeah. And one thing that I noticed, Robin, just a quick clarification. So while the programs have increased by 4, the amount, could you comment on that real quick? Because I thought that was pretty significant.
So we went from, in 21, we had 8,273,000, and in 22, we had 11,780,000.
Great. Thank you. Comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, we appreciate the work that MHP does for us. Thank you. If there are no comments from the committee, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 That item moves forward. Next item, please.
Number 29G, contract modification number 1 to contract number 7504 between the City of Cheyenne and FCI Constructors of Wyoming, LLC for the Emergency Response Facilities Guaranteed Maximum Price, GMP.
Staff report.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. John Copper, Fire Chief, Cheyenne Fire Rescue. The agenda item you have before you today is for the guaranteed maximum price for the construction of all 3 fire stations. Just to give some background, we started this process with awarding a contract to our construction manager at risk, which is FCI here today, back in late April. The construction manager at risk is responsible for overseeing the project, construction from start to finish, working closely with the design team, securing and managing the bid process, and coordinating the guaranteed maximum price for review and approval. The city, Plan One, and FCI have worked diligently over the last few months to ensure design standards were met, along with value engineering in a very volatile market. I don't think I have to tell anybody this, with escalation of prices. Before you today is the result of many months of design and value engineering efforts to meet the growing needs of our community. The guaranteed maximum price for all 3 fire stations is $20,497,716. I did provide a memorandum to you earlier to show you the breakout of all 3 different sites in the memo. We also have the breakout of all 3 stations as far as price and the availability also. So with that, myself and my team will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Stand by. Comments from the public?
Something.
Pardon me? Do I have a motion from the committee?
I move to approve an amount not to exceed $20,497,716.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee? Dr. Aldrich.
I noticed that this is modification number 1. I just would like to know that was the last.
That does, number one, I agree. Number two, that brings forth a question. You said guaranteed maximum price amendment. So with that language in the memo and on this item, could there be future contract modifications moving forward, or is that the guaranteed price?
Chairman, as long as we don't change design, we don't run into anything that's out of the ordinary, that is the guaranteed maximum price.
Good to know. Thanks for that.
The only modification to that.
Only modification to this construction manager at risk contract.
And
You are very clever.
Chief, when would you be breaking ground on the first station?
The first station, Chairman, we're looking at October 3rd, 2022 through September 4th of 2023. Tentatively, upon your approval, we have a groundbreaking ceremony October 5th at 2 o'clock at the Converse site.
Thanks. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor of this item, please signify by saying aye.
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 As no one's opposed, that item moves forward. Thank you, Chief. Next item, please.
Number 30A, consideration to purchase between the City of Cheyenne and Econolite for 4 traffic controller cabinets for the City of Cheyenne Traffic Division.
Vicki Hamachek, Public Works. This is a sole source purchase through Econolite for 4 traffic controller cabinets. Those are they control traffic signals. The total amount is for $38,700. And this is the only vendor that can provide cabinets that work with our firmware and our Centrax system software. I recommend approval. Anthony.
Thanks, Vicki. Stand by. Comments from the public?
I don't see any.
Hearing none, do I have a motion from the committee?
I would move to approve an amount not to exceed $38,700.
It's been moved and seconded. Comments from the committee?
When you're ready.
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Vicki, how does one become a sole purchaser? Is it like you just previously stated that they're the only ones that can perform this type of work in the entire region? Because this one was a little odd to me that I didn't know how many sole purchase requirements or sole purchasers we actually had under the city. So how does one become that?
The purchasing manager requires us to submit a letter from the sole source vendor to explain why, and I do have a copy of that letter. I don't know if that was included in your package, but it has to be submitted to the purchasing manager to explain why it would be a sole source purchase. In some cases, we have vendors that we have regional vendors, and only they can provide particular products. This is that type of situation.
Mr. Bartleboard, would you like to provide any insight on that?
Sure. TJ Bartleboard, purchasing manager to the city. So I had too many thoughts about it. He said it really well, but just to kind of add on to that, basically there are like regional reps. Like if you wish to buy this product, the manufacturer says this is your dealer for the region. We're not going to let anybody else sell it to you. Or like in kind of like they're the only ones that make it, sell it, will fix it, those types of things. And so yeah, so Vicki was right with it. So it's correct. I agree.
Thanks, TJ.
Sure.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, I guess it was just, I was unfamiliar if this was just a departmental policy and procedure, or if this was a citywide policy procedure on exactly how this went down.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
That moves forward. Mr. Johnson as a no. As there are no other items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Have a great day. TJ Manager, I'm Brad Pitt.
You know, I started having a hard last name.